Welcome you all guys once again to the Proactive English. In today the talk of the topic is about literary criticism. What is literary criticism? For most of the time we misunderstand it that it is a negative aspects of any sort of genre. No, it's not like that. For most of the time, if we understand it's like this, so it goes into the very wrong side. But literary criticism, particularly, it talks about the value, judgment, or evaluation or the analysis of something intended to make it to the more vivid to the audience and to the readers. Likewise, today we will talk about literary criticism, and the first critic of the literature is said to be Plato's, whose work is it's really fantastic work has been done by him, and the work of his is of really great worth. Who was Plato and his most important theory of imitation? Plato's theory of imitation. Firstly, we should have to understand it that Plato was an Athenian philosopher born in 427 BC into a rich Athenian aristocratic family. For most of the time we think about it, Plato is one of the person who gives us the idea about various views. He actually set forwarded the background to the literature and particularly about criticism. For most of the times we are jumbled with his ideas that we misunderstand. That actually Plato kicks out the poetry from a republic, but it's not like that. He actually kicks out the poets out of his republic, not the poetry, because for himself, because he stated that in many times like that Homer's work is to be criticized, though he has written in his various works he highly praised the work of Homer. So we should have to understand right now reasons of the Plato's writing. What are those reasons why Plato writes? So actually we should have to understand about the background of the Plato's writing, which is said to be very well like there was a war between Sparta and Athens, and as I already mentioned that Plato was from Athens, so the side of the Athens was going to be it was devastating. So Athens were declining and its youth were indulged into the various activities. So the democracy was in danger too. This is also another great aspect. And sophists were paralyzing them or misconception over the lower side of the psyche, that is the moral side. This is what the stance taken from the side of Plato's, that the sophists of the time were paralyzing the minds of the youth. That is the reason why that the decadence or the endanger of and the declining of the thing Athens is to be very much vivid against Sparta war. Well, this was a negation of ideas or reason from the side of Plato's. What is the Plato's theories of forms? We should have to discuss right now about it. There are two views of him, he says, about in theories of forms. That is the ideal form and earthly form. The ideal form is the world of being, and this is a permanent world according to Plato's views. While another, there is earthly, we can call it a temporary form, non-eternal or changing world. This is against the sophist views. So Plato's put forward that these theories about forms, which we can call theories of the forms. For him, there is two kind of worlds, which we can talk about a little bit more further about it. That the two worlds, the world of things and the world of ideas. We should have to discuss this about it and into understand it into a very great vivid manner. We should have to think about it that the theories there are some analogies which has been put forwarded by Plato's, the analogy of the sun, the divided lines, and the cave analogy. So intended to understand it, we must have to know about that the analogy of the cave should be intended to know that why did Plato kicks out the poetry out of his republics and why he put forward some allegations about it. So the very first point we should have to understand it here, that is about Plato's views of the cave. So what as he says in this cave theory analogy, he says that everything is a shadow, just imitation of an imitation. Hence literature is twice the poetry is twice removed from the reality. Intended to understand this, we must have to know that the sophistry of the views like that. So he said that if there is a cave, and while on the cave there inside there are some people In this, for example, you can imagine XYZ, wheresoever the peoples are there. In front of them, there's the screen, and in this cave, behind, outside the cave, there's a light which illuminates, and the shadow of these lights put in their imprints inside the cave. Whatever the screen beside these, in front of those people who are in the caves, see the shadows of the original things, either that is tree, chairs, or human beings, whatsoever is there outside the cave is to be seen in front of them. What happens actually, this shadow is conceived by them the real, is the poets are imitating just the imitation of imitation, and they are seeing it as a real reality from the side of whatever I'm trying to describe the perspective of Pluto's scenes. And this, for example, he says that whatever the images appears in front of them, that is said to be real in front of those people who are inside the caves. But actually the case, one day a person from the cave just escaped from there, and they are meant to a chain, and when that one person escaped and he comes out of the caves, there he observed that mostly the world is being changed. Whatever they have been observing, that it was just merely a shadow, that was not at all in a reality. Now they get to understand that what is the real human beings, the real trees, the real each and every things, the real reference are outside of the cave. So this is just the imprints or the shadows what we have been observing of the life. When he comes back inside to the cave, when he tells the story, the rest of the members just make them kills. Now you should have to think, understand it very well right now. Why did Pluto kicks out the poetry from his republic? That is the reason why he says that whatever the poets are doing, it's just merely imitation of an imitation, because first there is something real, then there is the imitation of that thing has been already existed, but the poets are twice removed because they are just imitating of that imitation. That is why he kicks out the poets of the republic. Then the question arises, how does these images came into being? The answer is very clear and vivid. With association of higher form, on the basis of these analogies, Plato changes his allegations or kick up poetry from his republic, because on the basis of these, then the point comes about theory of mimesis. Poetry appeals to the inferior side of the poetry. These were some points. Let me tell you some points about it. What does he says? He says because the theory of mimesis, the poetry appeals to the inferior side of the psyche. Poetry is a contingent magnet of position. It just paralyzes the mind of the people rather than working. Plato does allow poetry if there are some points providing that appeals to the superior side, reason, rational logic of the person, of man's psyche. For example, like Hams is there, praises to the state heroes because Spartans were dominating while Athens were going to decline, and that is the reason why he would actually try his level best to make his countrymen superior, intended to defeat the Sparta or just to win their game or to defend it well. So Pluto's view of imitation is very much vivid to the world, and what this is, we can say that the very much ponderable. And then there is also the analogy of the divided lands, in which he draws some lands vertically and horizontally, in which he stated that the very upper layer is the ideal, while the very lower one is the imaginary, while in the mid there is material, the reference which we are talking about. This is what he understands, is that the world should be and should be known to these perspectives. So apart from that, there is the sun analogy, which is already stated in that one, that ideal word is like the sun, like the rays are coming like that. I mean that just intended to know about the Pluto's writing reason must be mentioned, because without having a background to the knowledge of Pluto's, it will be really difficult to understand the whole chain of the criticism. It plays a very significant role. For most of the time, we just intermingle these kind of things to each other, and this is to be much more understandable if we comes to know about his disciple. Yes, you are guessing right. I'm talking about the next lecture. We are going to talk about Aristotle's view and his view of tragedy. So how the allegations which has been put forwarded by his teacher, I mean Plato's, and the way he explained it, it is a marvelous work. We should have to stay tuned to see that. Thank you all to listen me carefully.